Welcome to Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto Willis, your host. Good morning, Houston. Good morning, Harris County. Good morning to the state of Texas. Good morning to the United States of America. And of course, we have to say good morning to the world. After all, we have listeners all over the world. Well, today I think our brother Jack Van Beber is flying solo. Good morning, Jack. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, Egberto.
Well, that's great. That is great to know.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jack.
I was really glad to see that Panama Supreme Court stood up to the miners out there with that open mining. I was really, it just shows that their Supreme Court works for the people, not like ours. Our Supreme Court is co-opted by corporate money, and, big conservative donors, judicial decision-making is skewed to the corporate interest, not the people. Thank you, Citizens United, and the other decisions that gave corporations those rights.
Man,
one of America's biggest problems right now is a stacked Supreme Court.
Yes. Let me tell you, Jack, over the last several months, it has been what we call in Panama, huelga and all of that. We were in the streets continuously. You didn't hear about it here, because these are the kinds of news stories that our mainstream media don't like to carry, because it would incite Americans to do the same in areas that we need to. Go ahead.
I said, hopefully.
I know.
Yeah.
But anyway, what's your word of the morning, my dear brother?
Well, that was kind of it. I read your newsletter this morning, and that's the one that stood out to me. And, the one about, Mrs. Bash, and saying that even she knows that a vote for Biden will be a vote for democracy.
Absolutely. So Cassidy, and, Cassidy is no progressive. Cassidy is a real conservative, and not only that, a right-wing conservative. So that tells you something there. But anyway, Jack, we are honored this Thursday once again to have the one and only Houston and national activist, Neil Aquino. Good morning, Neil Aquino. How art thou doing, sir?
I'm doing well, Egberto, global listeners, local listeners, and thank you for having me on again. Always a privilege. Thank you.
Well, we have elections that are going on here, and it's great. Last night, in fact, there was one of these great meetings that, I guess the Chronicle reported, so I guess it's okay to talk about that internal Democratic meeting. So what are your thoughts on that meeting?
So, last night, it's all public. It's
well, tell us about it then,
The Resolutions Committee of the Harris County Democratic Party, which consists of volunteers. So if you read the Jen Rice story in the Chronicle this morning, so the upshot was, by an 11-9 margin, the Resolutions Committee of the Harris County Democratic Party moved forward admonishment, a censure of Kim Ogg for her hassling of Lena, for her actions within the party antithetical to the party. And Kim Ogg in the Chronicle says, committee insiders do not represent the Democratic voters of Harris County. A few partisan extremists will never subvert the rights of voters in the upcoming primary. And she says partisan, but it was a Democratic Party meeting. She was at it. She attends Democratic Party functions. So you see the misleading behavior beginning right off. They were not extremists. They were party rank and file. I can bet of the 11 folks who voted to admonish her, you can bet that was a Hillary crowd over a Bernie crowd going back a few years. Those were not.
Well, what's interesting, Neil, is, Neil, the fact that if here's the funny thing about that story in the Chronicle, right? And I haven't read it. I'm just paraphrasing what you had to say. But if she told the Chronicle it was a partisan crowd.
Right.
That pretty much means that she doesn't accept herself as a Democrat. Think about it. A Democratic meeting is by definition a partisan meeting. It's a Democratic. Go ahead.
Meeting. And she said a few partisan extremists will never subvert the rights of voters in the upcoming primary. And I think it's important to say that. No one was removing her from the ballot. That was never part of the discussion. She likens Democratic regular rank and file volunteers. And then, Bertie, these are people who give thousands of hours free to the party over the course of a lifetime. And to liken them to people, her allies, like Dan Patrick, who do want to subvert the vote. So somehow she's comfortable with the Republicans, but she's not comfortable with Democratic rank and file volunteers. They're the extremists.
And I think that is what has to come out, because in that meeting, according to the person who ran that meeting was 5 times as large as that meeting has ever been. I want folks to understand this. There was a resolutions committee Democratic meeting last night. The attendance of that meeting, when I went on to the Zoom and I saw the attendance of that meeting, I almost went like, really? Are you kidding me?
Right.
Let me just tell you, it was 5 times, according to the chairman of that meeting, what normally shows up to that meeting. That's not partisan extremist.
No.
And let me tell you, when you listen to everybody who spoke, and by the way, Neil, like you were, I attended the entire meeting.
Right.
When you listen to people of all strides,
the meeting was on Zoom.
It was amazing because there were very few. Former chief of police, Bradford, another person that works in her office, another person that threatened Latinos. I don't know if you heard that one, but there was one particular person in the thing that pretty much threatened Latinos, and I'm like, wait a minute, are you seriously doing that? Threatening with what's going to happen to the Latino vote. And it was great because the chairman responded with, oh, wow, if that activates that the community, great. The more people voting, the better, which is what we believe.
And the chairman of the meeting makes the point. The chairman of the meeting, Chuck Cruz, is a volunteer. Not only is he a volunteer, he ran a hardworking campaign against the odious Briscoe Cain in 2022. These were the people, and I don't care if they're ideologically to the left. That'd be great. But these were just a cross section of the party. These are just active rank and file. And to think that an elected official in our own party feels it's appropriate to speak that way about rank and file volunteers. So this moves on now to a party steering committee. Their meeting is December 2nd. And then if it gets through there, and I don't know the dynamics of that committee, then it goes to, I believe the December 9th scheduled CEC meeting. That date keeps coming to my mind, although that's election day. I don't know.
Right. I don't remember what the date is, but the fact of the matter is it has to go to the steering committee. And you can bet that after she saw that she had probably just 10% support in that very large room, and that was a very large percentage of all precinct chairs in Harris County.
That was.
When she sees that the support was not there, there's going to be a whole lot of hang ringing right now. So that is what's going to be going on going forward.
I'm glad you said that, because the steering committee, in fact, was a little bit even to the right of the larger precinct executive electorate. So even in that environment, she lost, and then still she criticizes them. She was on the call lurking. Her name was. I
saw her name on it. Yeah.
Lurking, and she could have come on and thanked everyone for being a volunteer. Hey, I respect your views, thank you, but She had to make up some story like folks are being paid or something. If only.
No, she could have come on to the meeting and said, I think there's a misunderstanding here.
Sure.
Why don't you contact my office and we'll talk about this a bit further? But instead to tell the Chronicle that the reason the vast majority of precinct chairs there spoke out vociferously against that, all that she represents for Harris County, that says much. So voters, we are currently in the early vote period. Make sure and make the correct. Hear me. I'm mixing up local politics and state. And what's occurring in March. In March, make sure when you go to the polls that you vote, like I constantly tell everybody, vote your interests. Be educated on what these people represent and how what they do affect you. And this goes not only locally, this goes statewide, this goes national. But anyway, before we get, we started and jumped right into that resolutions committee meeting with the Democratic Party. Let's go ahead and start the show by stating the following. Today's program is titled GOP Staffer, a vote for Biden saves our democracy. So says a GOP staffer. Aquino on runoffs. Well, Aquino is going to talk runoff. We just happened to start out today with a resolutions committee meeting. We went a little bit off wire there, but something that needed to be said. And then, of course, Panama, my home country. First of all, to all the haters out there, I am a naturalized American citizen for several decades, and I've participated in our body politic from my inception into this country. So I am a bona fide American of now Panamanian descent. So I am just like there are Americans of every other descent, we are all of some other descent. I'm one of Panamanian descent. And I was so proud. I was about to have two shows, one in Spanish and one in English, covering the ruckus that was happening in Panama. Because the people, Neil, were all over the streets because a Canadian company that began mining in Panama for copper in, I think it was 97. Panama has beautiful, and it's an environmental country. It's a country where its natural resources is one of its largest assets. And I mean, we're talking about the rainforest, we're talking about mountains, we're talking about clean rivers, all these things. And here comes a company that starts to strip mine. And in the process of strip mining, they dirty up some of our rivers that's going to take 200 years to repair. Okay? 200 years to repair. So the people started to protest, and what did our president do? And several of the diputados, they signed a 20-year contract with a whole lot of tax breaks, of just a few dollars for the country and probably kickbacks for all the politicians, and said that it was final. It was final. Well, the people were in the streets for months. Let me tell you what's funny. You even had people get killed. There is an American expatriate, American who was born on the Canal Zone, who decided to stay in Panama after the Panama Canal Treaty. He shot and killed two Panamanians because they were protesting and closing down streets to make sure that this mine doesn't continue. Well, with all of that that's happening, the Supreme Court finally said, I guess we need to bring order to the country. And they voted. And they said that the contract that was signed with the Canadian company was unconstitutional. It's not very often that a Latin American country, that a South American country, that an Asian country, that an African country beats out a huge company, a mining company or some company extracting your resources, and we saying, we don't care about you extracting these resources. We love nature the way it is. So, Neil, what the Panamanians have showed is that what many of our progressive Democrats are doing here in the United States of America can work. Your thoughts? Did you get me, Neil?
It's great to see that. I'm reading the Associated Press.
Yeah, go ahead, Neil.
I think we're having some delay.
Okay, yeah, we have a delay.
Okay, yes, it's a hell of a win. I'm reading the I'm reading the story, the Associated Press story, and it focuses on the grassroots activism in Panama that led to the win. So it's a hell of a thing.
Yeah, it is great. Folks, somehow we're working with sort of a delay right now with Neil. So if you get a little break, you know why. But anyway, it seems like we have Johnny on the line. Come on in, Johnny, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Okay, one simple question. You confused me a little bit earlier when you mentioned 5,000 people showing up. The first questions in my mind was, number one, if 5,000 people show up, a significant percentage of whom might not be Democratic voters, but Republican Party operatives who are there to cast a vote that does something to disfavor the Democrats, is that what happens, or am I totally wrong?
No, we didn't. I don't know where the 5,000 number came from. It was 100 and something people in the meeting last night. Neil, am I correct?
Yeah, one. I think the peak was 127.
127. Okay, there was one point in the meeting that I actually saw about 135 in the meeting, and that is huge for a meeting like that. So that was a huge thing, Johnny. Anyway, what else is up, Johnny?
That was my only concern. I just wanted to be sure that if 5 times the amount of people show up above normal, that it can be explained away by maybe people aggravated at the Republican Party and wanting to strengthen the Democratic Party somehow, or that it's not a bunch of Republicans wanting to show up because they got a signal, an email, to show up at this Democratic meeting and cast votes that favor
I got you.
the Democrats.
I got you. Let me assure you that I looked through the Zoom list as I looked at the participant list, and I knew most of the people in that meeting, and all of them weren't as progressives as myself or as progressive as Neil. But I knew most of those people in the thing. And Neil, I pretty much think that you can speak to that as well.
Okay, I'm satisfied. Thanks.
Yeah,
and that's the case. And that is the case. Only members of the committee could vote. Only members, and so the voters were all Democratic. Only members of that committee could vote.
Yeah. So anyhow, so I'm gonna ask Neil to do one thing for me. Neil, come out and come back in, because I think that delay is larger than it really needs to be. And while you come out and come in, I want to tell folks to go ahead and give us a call at 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. Remember, this is your show. Yes. I always come prepared with all the topics to take up a full hour. But even as I come with topics to take up the full hour, I always prefer to have what you want to talk about. And the reason why is that all my topics are sent out every morning at 5 a.m. with our newsletter, politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. If you're signed up, you'll get a letter every morning with what the show is going to be about, and with the particular videos that are associated with the show as well, so that we don't necessarily have to do the videos on air if you want to talk about something else. So give us a call, 713-526-5738. I want to also address, I think it was a caller 2 days ago, Carlos. I haven't yet done my research on all that has to do with the new immigration law from the this sounds funny. No state governor should be passing any kind of immigration law, but we did. Immigration is a national issue, but somehow our governor decided that we had to pass some sort of an immigration law. I want to learn all the implications of it. I know it tacitly, but I want to learn all the implications of it before I come to you. So, Carlos, I'll probably have that either tomorrow or Monday for you. Anyway, 713-526-5738. Give us a call right now, but I want to start now with the GOP staffer. I don't know if you remember Cassidy Hutchinson. Cassidy Hutchinson was that 20-something years old young lady who happened to be the chief of staff for the president's the president's chief of staff. And her ears was everywhere, and she saw a lot of the fraud that was occurring in the White House, which she wrote a book and she started to talk about it. Well, she also understood that we were on the brink of a successful coup in America. Yes, America almost had a successful coup. And now we're learning other things. We're learning that President Pence wanted to have nothing to do with the coup. Mm-hmm. And he was even thinking not to go and execute his duty as vice president and president of the Senate to count the votes. He was going to forego that. And what that meant is that the senator from, I don't remember, Grassley would have been in charge of running the vote. And it seems like Grassley was a part of the planning as well. And in fact, like now there's audio. Go ahead.
No, he's like 88. Yeah, he's awful. I just want to get it in there. He's been there forever. Yeah. And we've heard he's a moderate, and he was ready to undo the country.
He was a part. In fact, he told, and Chris Hayes and some others said, they didn't quite understand why before January 6th that Grassley was saying he may be the one conducting the vote count, and they were like, "That's Mike Pence who's going to do that." And nobody knew exactly what was going on behind the scenes. There was an official coup, and now, as it turns out, there are other reporting from the Common Dreams that talk about Ted Cruz's role as well. This thing is a lot deeper than many thought it was, or think it was. It's much deeper. And to some, many people want to just stuff it under the rug. It's something we got through it. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to bring it up again. But the cancer of the coup that was attempted covered the Senate, the House, and the executive, folks. Mm-hmm. And maybe the Supreme Court with Clarence Thomas as well. His wife was an integral part of that planning. So let's be clear here. We are still on the brink. And Cassidy Hutchinson heard it all, or heard it many, I should say. But anyhow, let's listen to this little piece I did last night with Cassidy. It has to do with what Lawrence Thomas thinks. Let me remind you, grown men had Eric Hayes, welcome to Politics Done Right. The misinformation that you said I am given, it's all documented, sir. You can read about it. You can read about it in several books that were written, including the vice president's book. You can read about it in Young's book. You can read about it in Cassidy Hutchinson books. And these things were spoken to. Liz Cheney has a new book out that talks about it. And these things were all discussed under oath. So, no, the misinformation comes from the right. Let's go ahead and listen to Miss Cassidy right now. Lawrence O'Donnell sure did a good job of showing that all the sycophants, grown men and some women who work for Donald Trump, their sycophancy puts Trump ahead of America's democracy. But it took a 20-something-year-old young woman to really have the prescient statement. What do we need to do in these next few months to save our democracy? and it sure means not electing Donald Trump. Take a listen to this, and then we'll take it on the other side.
If I thought it would make a difference, I'd be more willing to do it. But you're taking a lot of financial risks, and I haven't seen any evidence it really matters. Those words were spoken by someone quoted in a Washington Post article yesterday about former Trump White House and Trump administration officials who know Donald Trump should not be president again. Some of them, like Trump's second White House Chief of Staff, John Kelly, allowed their names to be used opposing Donald Trump's election, but many of them were afraid to allow their names to become public, like the man I just quoted. And we know he's a man because the Washington Post referred to him that way. Another prominent former official said he was debating whether speaking out would lead to clients dropping him. Clients. That means he's a lawyer or a lobbyist or both. And that means those clients very likely provide him with an income in the millions of dollars, an income that for him is apparently more important than his conscience or his sense of duty. Cassidy Hutchinson is 26 years old and has no clients to lose. She was 25 years old when she decided to do what the unnamed sources in the Washington Post are afraid of doing. Tell the truth about Donald Trump and her boss, White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, to the January 6th committee. She has told the story of how she became the star witness against Donald Trump in her best-selling book titled Enough. Here's what Cassidy Hutchinson said last night to Jen Psaki about the rich men who served in the Trump White House who know that Donald Trump should never be president again, but for whom nothing Donald Trump says or does to destroy the Constitution is enough to provoke them to come forward and publicly tell the truth about Donald Trump.
I think about, and the Washington Post put out a good story today about that, Jen, and there are a few particular quotes that stuck out to me, but towards the last half of the article, there were former Trump aides, anonymous former Trump aides, but I will point out that they were given masculine pronouns. So namely, primarily men who were speaking with the Washington Post anonymously about how they might want to speak out if he is the nominee, or they don't think it's worth speaking out because they'll lose clients. And what I'll say to them, I do understand a fear of retribution. I do fear backlash. I do understand their fear of backlash. But when we think about this next election in 2024, I don't like to play a doomsday hypothesis, but it does look like he is going to be the Republican nominee as of right now. If Donald Trump is elected president again in 2024, I do fear that it will be the last election where we're voting for democracy, because if he is elected again, I don't think that we'll be voting under the same constitution that we would be if Joe Biden is elected in 2024. I will say my door is completely shut to voting for Donald Trump. And the only reason that I will not endorse a candidate right now is because I still am hopeful that Donald Trump does not end up being the nominee next year. I think our country will be in a much better place overall, not just for myself, but the ticket and the future of our country will be. But what I will say too, though, is I think everybody should vote for Joe Biden if they want our democracy to survive.
Cassidy Hutchinson, she's no progressive. She's no Democrat. She's no liberal. She is a very conservative woman who still believes in the tenets of republicanism, old republicanism. Well, not old, Reagan type republicanism, type of republicanism that I am anathema towards. But above and beyond all of that, she saw the reality, country first, democracy first. Something that grown men that one would believe could have the courage to say, I am not going to go through that rabbit hole that takes us into fascism, where I myself, these grown men, would suffer as well. will it turn out that the people who save our democracy are the ones that we least would have ever expected to save it? Let's see. Will those be the ones who save our democracy? Before I ask Neil to comment on the piece, I want to invite everybody to call in right now. Let's talk about this subject or any subject you want to talk about before we move on. 713-526-5738. Please don't wait till the end of the show to call, because by then we're rushing you and we never want to do that. So please give us a call, 713-526-5738. All lines are open. I repeat, all lines are open, so you'll be taken care of rather quickly. Once again, 713-526-5738. Neil, your thoughts?
I'll be brief. I know we have a delay this morning. That point you're making, that we don't know who will show up, and we don't know who the heroes will be. That's a democracy is the right person.
So true. So I mean, I was very proud to listen to Cassidy, and like I said, Cassidy's ideology is completely different than what I stand for, and I'm pretty sure what you stand for. But the one thing that she is she is an American. She is a good American, and she has her own ideology, but she understands that first and foremost is our democracy. First and foremost is our democracy. And if you get anybody who says that, again, that the reason we have multi-party here, mostly two, but several parties, is because we all have different things that, different ideologies that we follow. The idea, though, is that the one tenet we all believe in is the Constitution, however flawed, and our democracy. Your thoughts on that? Let's come on in, Neil.
Right, absolutely. It's clear that the threat is directly in front of us. It's clear as day, and people are going to have to decide to act. And Miss Hutchinson's right. It may come with risk. It may come with career risk, personal risk, and it may in time come with physical risk.
Yeah, well, that is the same. Let's go ahead and bring Harry into the conversation. And folks, don't forget 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. Please don't wait till the end of the show to call. Come on in, Harry.
Buenos dias, hermano Alberto Willis. Well, this frightens me, and I've said these things on Steve's show, You Talk, when he talked about Donald Trump becoming the nominee. That woman, Hutchinson, is absolutely correct. I'm scared because, we have laws in this country, and I've, been hearing these things and reading stuff with how these judges don't want to they say there's not enough evidence as far as the presidency is concerned with Donald Trump's Seditious Act that he did on January 6th, and then the documents he stole from the FBI, or when the FBI investigated and took down Mar-a-Lago, the people's property, and he could be taken off the ballot. So he cannot be the nominee. And there's something wrong with our system if he's not held accountable for that. That scares me. And then the other thing that scares me, too, I was listening to Arnie Arneson the whole hour in the first half hours, and he's been talking about these kinds of things. He's been talking about how our democracy is in peril. It's in danger because AIPAC wants to spend a whole bunch of money to stop progressives, to unseat progressives in the Democratic Party and replace them with more conservative, centrist Democrats. That scares me too, because that's undermining our democracy. And she was also commenting on Hakeem Jeffries taking money from AIPAC, and she's like, how can you do that when AIPAC tried to they were with Donald Trump, want to overturn the 2020 election. There's a lot of stuff out there that frightens me, and we as people have to get the right sources, and we have to vote. We have to fight these people and get the right people in office so our democracy doesn't go away.
Now, Harry, I want you to consider stopping using a word. are two words: frightens me. And let me tell you what I mean by that. I am not frightened at all, and I would hope to impart on everybody that's listening to my voice, that's listening to Neil, that's listening to Jack, that's listening to you. I'll impart on everyone: do not be frightened of anything. Act.
Okay.
Act. In other words, there are more of us who believe in democracy. And by the way, I don't want Donald Trump. I know there are a lot of people that want Donald Trump off of the ballot. I don't want Donald Trump off of the ballot. I want Donald Trump on the ballot. I want Donald Trump and all his cronies, all the Congress people, all the senators that are Trumpians. I want them on the ballot. But I tell you what else I want. I want the American people like you, like Neil, like Jack, like everybody else. I want you all to do your duty. This is the United States of America. We purport to be a democracy. We purport to be a country with one person, one vote. We purport to be so much more intelligent and advanced than many other countries. It is time that we act like it. The rest of the world seeing us take Donald Trump off of the ballot so that he doesn't win says very little about anyone having trust in America. You want people to have trust in America again? Because right now they don't. A little country like the country I am from think America is a joke, a rich joke. I repeat, a very, very rich joke. You remember the Beverly Hills Hillbillies? They were rich, but they were jokes.
Yeah.
And right now, that's the way the rest of the world sees America. And until we get Donald Trump on the ballot and all Donald Trump cronies on the ballot and give him a voter's whipping that shows America is back, we will never be back. So my brother Harry, I love you. I don't want you to ever use that word "you're frightened" again, my brother. And I want Neil to respond to this.
Okay.
Hold on, Harry.
Okay,
Let Neil respond. Neil. Hold on, Harry.
Okay,
Neil, go ahead.
We're going to have to act. We saw citizen democracy yesterday at the Resolutions Committee against even, we've talked retribution locally. Hutchinson, concerned about retribution, and we are really going to. It's really going to us and not a political class. It's really going to be up to us, and the issues are right, clear as day in front of us.
Thank you, Neil. Harry, come on in.
What I was going to say is, what frightened, well, I should, like you said, don't use that word, but when I hear Arnie Arnesen talking that way and I hear other people talking that way, what they're worried about is if Trump were to get back in office, more damage he can do. And that's what they're frightened of. And I'm frightened, I'm frightened when I hear them talk that way. I'm frightened as our system still going to work. And I follow your line of thinking. I believe as Americans, we should do our duty. Now, like I've said on your show and on You Talk, vote your conscience, get your intelligent sources so you can make intelligent votes. And I just want Donald Trump to be held accountable for what he did with the trying to overturn the election and people getting killed in that and losing loved ones. And I also want him to be held accountable for taking the government's property. And then and I think I think it's in Georgia where he and his lawyers tried to say that the ballot counting in Georgia during the 2020 election was bogus. And I want him to be held accountable for all those things. And I want him to have to go to trial, be put through the process, and be convicted and go to prison. Because we all know a lot of people have been saying this. He's just running for office again to try to stay out of prison.
That's exactly right. And Harry, the DAs are doing their jobs. The DAs are doing their jobs. It's time for the politicians to do theirs, and it's time for the people to do theirs. In the chat, it's funny because I have Eric Hayes, who's a bona fide right-winger. That's fine. I have no problem with that. But his countenance, his statement right now is that that our current administration is a joke. No. Our current administration, in as much as I disagree with their Israeli policy, has actually restored a lot of hope to the rest of the country. To the rest of the world. And what the rest of the world is fearing right now is that what happened in 2016 happens again. The rest of the world are concerned that we as American citizens will actually bring a Trump, and not only Trump, but somebody like Trump back into office. We are the bastions of democracy. But Harry, let me tell you something. And folks, excuse me because I have a bad head cold. I want to tell you something, Harry. If we vote Donald Trump back, let me finish, Harry. If we vote Donald Trump back into office, we deserve Donald Trump back into office. And it may be the time that I do use my dual citizenship. Because I tell you something, sir. Donald Trump, as president of the United States, not only unqualified, but no different than a mobster. Anything else before I move back on to Johnny, Harry?
Just that people, like I said, get your sources that you have to get and get out there and vote. This election is important. If you, like I said about Sheila Jackson Lee, if you want Sheila Jackson Lee in office, people, you gotta get out there and vote for her. If you want her instead of Whitmire, I know she's failing, but you guys can you people who want her, if you can make a difference, get out there and vote. That's what you got to do.
Thank you, brother.
As Howard says, vote these. We got to vote the rats out, and we got to get more progressives in there, so we can have a more freer American society. And
thank you.
All, not just a segment of people.
Thank you, Harry. I heard you channeling Howard there. Thank you very much. Anyway, come on in, Johnny, again.
Yeah, was that me you just asked for?
Yeah, you're on, Johnny.
Yeah, you are 110% correct. The very last thing we should do, and we're entitled to our private feelings, keep them private. But when we deal in public, when we discourse, never, ever use the words, I'm frightened or I'm scared, like some woman did to Tom Hartman a month or two ago. That transmits weakness. It invites more terror from the other side of the aisle. Never use those words. Don't forget, we outnumbered them. We outnumbered them. Don't forget that. Egberto, you're 110% correct. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. Anyway, folks, the phone lines are wide open. Neil, the last several days, where our phone lines were blowing up. I don't know if it's my choice of topics, but today we had 2 calls. We'll see if we get some more. The phones are wide open. We have a lot of callers on the streams and a lot of listeners on the stream. And I know by ear, we are waiting on your calls to see if you want to change the subject before I move on. 713-526-5738. We're honored to have Neil Aquino. Again, Neil, tell us a little about the runoffs here in Houston, Texas.
Great. And you can read my coverage of the runoffs in the Houston Democracy Project, the Houston Democracy Project. If you Google it, it'll come up. There's a daily blog, and I'm working to organize, inspire, and strengthen pro-democracy Houston and Harris County. I know there's a delay, and excuse that, and I appreciate the audience's forbearance. The runoffs are going on. Early voting runs through the 2nd of December, Saturday. Election day is a week later on December 9th, a Saturday. Turnout was just 17%, if you can imagine, in the first round. And let me tell you, Republican victories are possible all the way. The 4 rollers race where there's a Democrat running against a Republican. These Republicans are running hard. They're being supported by the Harris County Republican Party. These elections are not nonpartisan, no matter what anyone tells you. And it really makes a difference to share with your friend, your family, your workmate, that these elections are going on, and we need to prevail.
I have a message for all Houstonians. That recently we've been hearing throughout the country how all these cities have been flipping. In other words, they've been going from Republican to Democrats, and that is because, as it turns out, people are waking up to the Republican leadership fraud. And notice I said Republican leadership fraud, not my Republican brothers and sisters, but Republican leadership fraud. The Republican Party is basically a fraud. Now, that said, it would be ironic if the fourth largest city in the country, because of voter apathy, because we think, well, Houston is a progressive city, Houston is a democratic city, it's a city where, because of that low turnout, anything can happen. If Whitmire wins with a large margin over Sheila Jackson Lee, it is almost a foregone conclusion that all the Democrat at large positions will be lost. Because the only way Whitmire wins with a large margin is because he will be getting the Republican vote. I repeat, Whitmire is going to get all the Republican vote in Harris County. And while that may be 35, 40% in a low turnout election, that is a winning percentage. So therefore, if you want, again, a turnout for a high turnout for Whitmire is equivalent to a clean sweep. I guarantee you a clean sweep of all at-large positions going Republican in the county, in the city. And let me tell you what the headlines are going to look like the day after. The day after, the headlines would look: Republican partisans take over fourth largest city in the country and the largest progressive city in the South. Think about how you will feel if you know that the right-wing extremists have taken over the city because of voter apathy, because you don't think your vote matters, because you don't think any particular Democrat that is running in this race is good enough. You know, we better grow up, folk. Every single Houstonian should be out there voting appropriately. And as far as I am concerned, I will be voting a straight Democratic ticket, starting from Sheila Jackson Lee to Plummer to Hollins. And the reason why: young, progressive, diverse. That is what we're looking for in a city. We're not looking for fraud. We're not looking for corporate control. We're looking for what's right. And as I'm speaking, Neil, you may want to add something to that. I know that you speak some about this at the Voter Project, the Houston, I'm losing my mind. Your Houston Democracy Project.
I just say all you need to do is just look up the road to the Cypress Fairbanks Cy-Fair Independent School District, where you have an extremely diverse electorate. Folks are not coming to vote, and it's a 6-1 right-wing majority. And that's the third largest school district in Texas. And love to have callers and talk about it. Don't want to make the point that's evident and beat anyone over the head. But this stuff is so important, and I understand why people get down, and I feel down sometimes myself. But in that Cy-Fair school district, they've got a strong conservative school district, and it didn't have to be that way.
Okay, looks like we have a line. Line 4 is on right now. Line 4, who am I speaking to? Sure. Line 4 is on red. Everybody say hello. That's online. We have lines up. Everybody say hello.
Hello.
Okay, Yes, who am I speaking to?
This is Kurt.
Come on in, Kurt. Talk to me.
Hey, how you doing, Humberto?
I am doing fine. I'm doing fine.
My thing is that I'm watching how the Harris County Republicans are working. Now, it was a while for the last session we all was able to vote for the mayor. Now they redistricted water, some about the water, and that now we can't vote for the mayor. That don't make sense because we got Houston zip code, and we've been and every I've been voting for the mayors ever since I've been in Texas. And now all of a sudden they're telling us we can't vote. So they knew what they were doing. It's actually kind of like gerrymandering. They taking our vote away from us. And that
okay. Let me ask you something, because did you move or are you in a different apartment or a house? Where are you at, Kurt?
Yeah, I'm off of 1960. In Ella Boulevard, and
let me tell you what happened. Did you move though? Did you recently move?
No, I'm still there.
And you said at one time you could vote for mayor, and this time you cannot.
I have voted in every mayor election, and when we went in the other day, they said that. And it's still Houston, you know what I mean? 77090, and they said that we could only vote for whatever they had going on. They wasn't, but we couldn't vote for the mayor. Right.
Okay, Kurt, I have a question. Kurt, what you're telling me is concerning. I want to verify this. So I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. If you feel comfortable enough, drop me an email to kpft@politicsdoneright.com with your address. I want to investigate this. I want to make sure that there's not some sort of a shenanigan that occurred there. So send me an email, kpft@politicsdoneright.com with your address, and I want to do some checking on that. Okay, but our lines are filled up. I got to run and do them real quickly. So everybody that's coming on now, you only got 35 seconds. So let's start with Emmanuel. Emmanuel.
Morning, mi hermano. How are you?
I'm doing fine, hermano. Talk to me, my brother. Sorry that I only can give you 30 seconds.
Yes. Listen, the fight in the city been going on very, very long time. Because I've been following what's happening in the city. Long time since I moved to Houston. I came out of the army. I moved to Houston. I saw what was happening. And the Republicans been getting together long time. And then when they received the golpe of Lina Hidalgo, they become more aggressive because they realize what was happening. And now they got, Mattress Mac and people like that attacking the county, trying to get rid of Lina Hidalgo. They don't want no more Democrats for mayor. And this been going on a long time, hermano.
Hermanos, Emmanuel, muchísimas gracias. Tengo que irme, pero oíste lo que conseguiste. Oí lo que dijiste. Thank you, brother. Let's go to Derek. Come on in, Derek. 30 seconds, Derek.
Yes, I hope you do listen to what Kirk is saying, because it is interesting right there in that 1960 corridor, because I stay like in the Klein area. School district, but I'm wondering what school district runs right there where he does 1960. You know what? It's Aldine. So that's,
right. Well, Derek, I get you. I understand that. That's why I want him to send the address so I can do some research. Thank you, Derek. I need to go to Tag real quick. Thank you, brother. Tag, come on in real quick.
Hey, Egberto. I wanted to say that I think voters are getting somewhat complacent. Right? Complacent in the elections?
Sir. Yes, you're correct.
I think that you can kind of apply Maslow's to the voters and see that the bottom rungs of the pyramid have been filled, and people just take that for granted anymore. And it's a higher actuation that that people respond to. So that's what I wanted to say real quickly. If you apply man's laws to the, we'll see a lot more of what's going on. Thanks. Have a good day.
I appreciate you, Tag. Bart, come on in. You got 30 seconds.
Yes, sir. We do want a Democrat for the mayor. The Democrat we want is Whitmire. Everybody vote for Whitmire, Orlando Sanchez, and Tony Busby. Remember those names when you go in, pull that lever.
Thank you, Bart. You have a wonderful day, my brother. And folks, remember who I said I'm voting for. I said I am voting for Mayor Sheila Jackson Lee, Controller Hollins, and definitely not Sanchez. Everybody knows Sanchez history. Give me a quick closer, Neil.
Great. You can see coverage of this on the Houston Democracy Project. Please talk to your friends, family. This is a low turnout vote, and you can make a difference. It's important that we do and not have those national headlines Egberto's talking about. The privilege of being on.
Look, let's go, Jack. Give me a 30-second closer, Jack.
Well, kind of caught me off guard there. I thought I had something.
I know, because those phones had you going like crazy, Jack. I saw that. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah. They lit up at the end. All I can say is, I'll parrot Howard. Get out and vote these people out. Vote your conscience. Vote in somebody that's going to be stable and not trying to get in your hip pocket every time.
Thank you, my brother. Look, I want to thank all the callers. I want to thank all the listeners. I want to thank my brother here, Neil Aquino, for getting up early in the morning to give us some of his wisdom. Please check out his Houston Democracy Project. It's a website, one of the websites that we should be listening to and watching on a daily basis. I want to thank Texas Blue Bonnet, who's with us right now, Alistair Waters, who's with us right now, Eric Hayes, who's with us right now. All of you all make this show what it is. My name is Egberto Willis. This is Politics and Rant, and you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out!
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number 1, subscribe to our channel, and number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.